Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehani and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have threatened to resume fight against foreign troops if they don't withdraw by the agreed timetable. The warning comes a day after US President Joe Biden said it would be hard to stick to the May 1st deadline. The Taliban said the onus for any escalation in violence will be on those who will breach the Doha peace deal. At least 32 people have died and 91 injured after two passenger trains collided in southern Egypt. Authorities said a train stopped suddenly after someone triggered its emergency brakes, causing the second one to crash into it from behind. In Bangladesh, 4 people have been killed in Chittagong after police opened fire on protesters rallying against the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Dozens of others were wounded in a clash with police in Dhaka as Modi attended Golden Jubilee celebrations of the country's independence. The protesters criticized Modi's anti-Muslim policies and claimed him the butcher of Gujarat. In Myanmar, security forces have shot dead 3 more protesters in Mayak, raising the death toll from the crackdown on anti-coup protesters to over 300. The military has also released 300 more prisoners who were detained after the February 1st coup. Pakistan has conducted successful flight test of Shaheen-1A, a surface-to-surface ballistic missile having a range of 900 kilometers. The military's media wing says the test flight was aimed at revalidating various designs and technical parameters of the weapon system. The President, Prime Minister and services chiefs have congratulated scientists and engineers on the successful missile test. Brazil has registered a record 100,000 coronavirus infections in a day, with its caseload crossing 11.7 million. Mexico has become the 3rd country in the world to top 200,000 COVID-19 deaths. Pakistan has registered over 4,000 infections, the highest in 9 months, while 63 more people died from the virus overnight. The global number of coronavirus cases has surpassed 125 million, with more than 2.7 million deaths. And in tennis, Croatia's Marin Cilic has advanced to the second round of the Miami Open after beating Argentina's Federico Coria 6-3, 2-6 and 6-4. Meanwhile, British teenager Jack Draper's ATP Tour debut ended abruptly during his match against Kazakhstan's Mikhail Kukushkin. Draper collapsed on the court due to dehydration during the first set, which lasted 81 minutes. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. In Afghanistan, the Taliban have threatened to resume fight against foreign troops if they don't withdraw by the agreed deadline. The warning comes a day after US President Joe Biden said it would be hard to stick to the May 1st deadline. Also on Thursday, Germany's lawmakers approved a mandate to allow its troops to stay in Afghanistan until 2022. However, the Taliban said the onus for any escalation in violence will be on those who will breach the Doha peace deal. The group reaffirmed it's committed to the agreement, terming it the most sensible path to end 20 years of war in Afghanistan. At least 32 people died and 91 injured after two passenger trains collided in southern Egypt. Authorities said a train stopped suddenly after someone triggered its emergency brakes, causing the second one to crash into it from behind. They have launched further investigations. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said those responsible will be punished. The accident comes 2 years after a major collision in Cairo that left at least 24 people dead. In Myanmar, 3 more anti-coup activists have been killed after security forces opened fire on protesters in Miak. According to an advocacy group, more than 300 people have been killed since the military seized power on the 1st of February. In Mandalay and Longlawn district, protesters marched in front of a civil disobedience movement banner. While candlelit protests took place overnight in the Sagaing regions as well as in the Karan and Chin states. This comes as Myanmar authorities released nearly 300 anti-coup activists from a prison in Yangon. This is in addition to previously 1,000 freed prisoners. Meanwhile, the World Bank has warned that the country's economy is expected to contract by 10% this year amid the turmoil. In Bangladesh, 4 people have been killed in Chittagong after police opened fire on protesters rallying against the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Dozens of others were wounded in a clash with police in Dhaka as Modi attended Golden Jubilee celebrations of the country's independence. The protesters criticized Modi's anti-Muslim policies and called him the butcher of Gujarat. A spokesperson for the march said around 2,000 students joined the demonstration, but several of them have been arrested. In India, the protesting farmers are observing nationwide strike after blocking main roads, railway tracks, markets and businesses. The strike marks 4 months of farmers' agitation against the BJP government's 3 controversial farm laws. The 12-hour blockade has greatly affected Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh states. Additional contingents of police force have already been deployed in the wake of the shutdown call. Opposition leader Rahul Gandhi has also announced to support the Farmers' Bharat Bandh protests. 11 rounds of talks between farmers and the government have failed to end the deadlock. More than 250 growers have died since the start of their agitation on the 26th of November last year. Pakistan has successfully conducted the flight test of a surface-to-surface ballistic missile. The media wing of the military said the missile Shaheen 1A has a range of 900 kilometers. It said the test flight was aimed at revalidating designs and technical parameters of the weapon system. The President, Prime Minister and services chiefs congratulated scientists and engineers on successful missile test. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has visited logistics installations in Rawalpindi. The military's media wing said the Army Chief was briefed on the facilities being developed and the upgradation mechanism of vehicles. It said General Bajwa appreciated the indigenous capability of complete overhaul of different service helicopters. The Army Chief also lauded the efforts of the Commandant and the staff on their achievement, which will reduce spending on imports. Earlier, the Army Chief was received by Logistics Chief Lieutenant General Azhar Saleh Abbasi. The Arab coalition in Yemen has intercepted another Houthi drone over Saudi city Najran. This comes after Houthis attacked Saudi state-owned oil company Aramco's vital installation in Jazan. Saudi Energy Ministry said one of the reservoirs at the petroleum products distribution station caught fire after the attack. The coalition said it has also destroyed 9 explosives-laden drones fired towards different Saudi cities by the Houthis. It added that some drones were aimed at the universities of Jazan and Najran. Meanwhile, Pakistan condemned the attacks and reaffirmed support for Riyadh against any threat to its territorial integrity. Earlier, the US lauded the Yemeni government's support for a nationwide ceasefire. North Korea has claimed the missiles it launched Thursday were a new type, a tactical guided projectile. Under the UN Security Council resolutions, Pyongyang is banned from testing ballistic missiles.
North Korea's senior leader Ri Pyong-chol, who oversaw the test, said, "The new weapon system is of great significance in bolstering deterrence against all sorts of military threats." Pyongyang state media said the weapon system's warhead weight has been improved to 2.5 tons. This makes the missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. It said the two missiles accurately hit the target, set in the water 600 kilometers off the east coast into the Sea of Japan. The missiles were the country's first ballistic launches in almost a year and the first since U.S. President Joe Biden took office. Biden said the U.S. remained open to diplomacy with North Korea, despite its missile tests, but warned there would be responses if Pyongyang escalates matters.
South Korea has called for continuous dialogue between Seoul, Pyongyang and Washington. President Moon Jae-in said this during a ceremony in Pyeongtaek. He said South Korea remains firm in its security readiness to combat all types of provocations. Moon also expressed confidence in the country's military strength while praising the firm South Korea-US alliance. The president's remarks came hours after Pyongyang confirmed its first launch of ballistic missiles in about a year. Moon called the missile tests concerning, saying Pyongyang's provocations are undesirable amid efforts to revive denuclearization talks.
We have the world's best missile capabilities for defending ourselves, while we still follow the principle of denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Palestine has welcomed Washington's announcement to resume providing aid to the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Mohammed Shatai called the U.S. move an important step towards restructuring bilateral relations. U.S. envoy to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, says Washington is concerned regarding the impact of COVID-19 on the needs of Palestinians. She said the U.S. has announced $15 million in support to the most vulnerable communities in the West Bank and Gaza. The aid was halted during the administration of former President Donald Trump as he sought closer ties with Israel. China says it has imposed sanctions on British individuals and entities that spread lies and disinformation about Xinjiang. In a statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said the curbs target 4 entities and 9 individuals. Those targeted include former Conservative Party leader Ian Duncan Smith and the Conservative Party Human Rights Commission. These individuals and their family members are banned from entering Chinese territory or doing business with Chinese citizens or institutions. Beijing warned London of more of such measures if it chooses to go further down the wrong path. The move follows a coordinated set of sanctions imposed by the US, the EU, the UK and Canada against China. Brazil has registered a record 100,000 COVID-19 infections in a day, with the caseload crossing 11.7 million. Mexico has become the 3rd country in the world to top 200,000 deaths from the virus. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.7 million lives and infected 125 million people. More in this report.
The second spring surge of the coronavirus pandemic has taken the world by storm. Even though the U.S. claims to be running a smooth and effective inoculation drive, cases in the country continue to swell. President Joe Biden says he will double his vaccination goal to 20 million shots during the first 100 days of his administration. The U.S. has also announced $15 million in coronavirus aid to Palestine, a sharp reversal in policy from the Trump administration. In Canada, Moderna has delayed 500,000 vaccine doses due to a backlog in the quality assurance process. The Brazilian variant is now battering Latin America as nations witness the deadliest spikes in cases.
A sampling taken throughout Lima showed that the main variant today in Lima, at almost 40%, is Brazilian variant. We identified it in Loreto. We identified it in other places also. Weeks ago, we identified just one case of this variant in Lima that was controlled. But now we have from the sampling 40% of the cases produced by the Brazilian variant.
In Europe, the third wave of infections is now raging, with the B.1.1.7 variant dominating new infections. French authorities have announced to put 3 additional regions under tightened restrictions for 4 weeks. EU leadership has agreed to step up the production of vaccines in Europe amid a vaccine export row with the UK. The bloc's chief has called on AstraZeneca to catch up on its promised deliveries to the EU before exporting doses elsewhere.
We have to and want to explain to our European citizens that they get their fair share. And therefore, the second principle is that companies have to honor their contract to the European Union before they export to other regions in the world. And this is, of course, the case with AstraZeneca.
In Asia, COVID-19 is once again ravaging India, infecting a whopping 100,000 people over the past 6 days. South Korea has again extended social distancing rules for 2 weeks as daily new cases hit a 1-month high.
Pakistan has recorded the highest rise in new coronavirus cases in a single day since July 2020. The Health Ministry reported more than 4,000 infections in the past 24 hours. The new cases take the national positivity ratio to 10.3%. Officials say 63 more people lost their lives overnight. The death toll is approaching 14,100. Nationwide, more than 645,000 people have been infected during the pandemic, of which some 591,000 people have recovered. The ministry says more than 2,700 people are in critical condition across the country. In Pakistan, an airport has been inaugurated in the Sadhu Sharif area of the scenic Swat Valley. The valley was once a stronghold of terrorists who burned down several educational institutes. In 2009, the Pakistan Army launched an operation, Rah-e-Rast, and cleared the area of the terrorists in a short span of time. The valley has now come back to life, and the airport will give an impetus to tourism. But this arduous journey became possible only after the sacrifices of several martyrs. In India, 10 people have died in a fire that engulfed a mall housing a hospital treating coronavirus patients in Mumbai city. Officials said more than 70 patients with COVID-19 infections have also been evacuated. Authorities say the rescue operation is still underway and the cause of the fire is being investigated. It isn't yet clear if any of the victims were COVID-19 patients. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Turkey says it welcomes the rhetoric in the memorandum adopted by EU leaders at a virtual summit. In a statement, Ankara said it wishes to boost ties with the bloc based on cooperation and mutual benefit. The Foreign Ministry said Turkey expects the EU to take concrete and constructive steps in line with the positive agenda. Earlier, the EU said it is prepared to boost cooperation with Turkey, provided a current de-escalation is sustained. In a statement, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said this is subject to Turkey moving forward constructively. She said if Ankara returns to unilateral actions, particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean, EU will suspend cooperation measures. Meanwhile, in a phone call to Greek Prime Minister, US President Joe Biden expressed hope for stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. Experts say it could take days or weeks to dislodge a giant container ship that blocked the traffic in Suez Canal after turning sideways on Tuesday. The ship, which was knocked off by strong winds, remains grounded in the same position with tugboats and dredgers working to refloat it. Around 10% of the world's trade flows through the canal. According to a German study, the blockage can cost global trade at least $6 billion a week. Addis Ababa says Eritrea has agreed to withdraw troops from Ethiopian territory along their border. In a statement, the Prime Minister said Ethiopian forces will take over guarding the border areas immediately. Abiy Ahmed said the two countries will continue building on the understanding reached in 2018. The Prime Minister accused former Tigray leaders of drawing Eritrea into the conflict by firing rockets into Eritrean capital. This comes days after Abiy Ahmed acknowledged that Eritrean troops were present in the northern region. The admission followed months of denials from Addis Ababa and Asmara. Renowned Pakistani dramatist and writer Hasina Moon has passed away in Karachi at the age of 79. The cause of her death was not immediately announced. Moon was a breast cancer survivor and held several accolades under her belt. She was awarded the Pride of Performance by the Pakistani government for her services to performing arts. She also holds the distinction of penning Pakistan's first original script, A Kiran Kahani, in the 1970s. The death toll from the deadly winter storm in the U.S. state of Texas has climbed up to 111. The Texas Department of State Health Services said that most of the victims fell prey to hypothermia. The death toll is expected to rise further as officials investigate the causes of death associated with the storm. Over 4 million Texans went without electricity and drinking water for days due to sub-freezing temperatures. The latest toll now officially exceeds Hurricane Harvey in 2017, which claimed 68 lives in the Lone Star State. The harsh winter conditions also led to deaths in neighboring southern states, including Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Tennessee. In the U.S., at least 5 people have died as several powerful tornadoes tore through northern Alabama state. Emergency services say the twisters also left dozens of people injured and destroyed entire neighborhoods. They said the tornadoes downed trees and power lines, leaving tens of thousands of people without power. Authorities remain unsure of the full extent of the damage as the severe weather inhibits search and research efforts. Authorities have warned that a large severe weather cell will continue battering Alabama with high-velocity winds, hail, and tornadoes. African elephants living in forests and savannas are increasingly threatened with extinction. They are on a red list of species in trouble, prompting conservationists to call for an urgent end to poaching. More in this report.
A new assessment by the International Union for Conservation of Nature underscores persistent pressures faced by the 2 species of elephants in Africa. In a survey, the Swiss-based body raised alarm over the possible extinction due to rising ivory hunting.
These results are due to decline in numbers that have been observed over several decades, with forest elephant declining by 86%. Over a period of 31 years, and savanna elephants declining by 60% over a period of 50 years.
Loss of habitat has also become an increasing threat.
With regards to the land issues, land degradation, habitat loss, those ones are things that need more focus because it's a silent killer. It happens in a way that people don't realize.
Despite the overall decline, some populations of forest elephants were rebounding due to successful conservation measures by Gabon and the Republic of Congo.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Bolivians marked the traditional Imira festival of Lasita with the event getting a COVID twist. Locals snapped up tiny vaccines, little negative tests and gels in hopes the Imira gods get them through the pandemic. This report has more.
Lasita, which means buy me in the Aymara language, sees people buying lucky charms related to their wishes for the year. A local artisan fair accompanies the festival in La Paz with stalls dealing in miniatures. The tradition establishes that people should purchase a miniature of the one thing they need the most during the coming year.
Because of the pandemic, the Lasita festival was delayed. Now we have all health measures in place, even with the EcoCos. We had adapted it with a face mask, antibacterial gel, so to disinfect it. Faith like in all years with EcoCo, the god of abundance, to whom we ask of everything and to buy everything with a lot of faith.
Those hoping for professional or educational success could buy mini certificates denoting various achievements and qualifications, whereas those wanting to marry can find mini rings or wedding certificates. Thanks to COVID-19 vaccines, many South Americans are hoping that the pandemic will soon be over.
I asked for good health. I asked for the things that we all ask for: money, a house, other things. For us, the most important thing is our health and our loved ones, and for hopefully this pandemic to be just a bad memory.
This year, many bought mini COVID vaccines in the hope that they are not far from getting vaccinated.
And other business updates. The Wall Street stocks have opened higher following a biggest boost in technology and financial shares. The investor sentiment was high after subdued inflation data. The markets were up as the central bank announced that banks can resume buybacks and raise dividends. The shares of JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs surged over 1%, while Bank of America advanced 2%. All the major bourses traded 0.5% higher. Meanwhile, the oil prices bounced back on fears the Suez Canal blockage may last for weeks. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.